Welcome, fam. It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro, and I am back with another client success story. Today, we are talking to Tina Carlson, my fabulous, mature woman over on the West Coast. Tina's been on a really awesome, incredible journey later in life. So I think this interview today will inspire those of you who think it might be too late for you. We're going to tell you why it's not and what you're capable of. Tina's been discovering what she's capable of and then some. And she's been super, super inspiring to me. So I'm thrilled to chat with her today. Thank you for joining us, Tina.
Thank you, Natalie, for inviting me on. It's a real honor.
Tell us a little bit first to get started, just a little bit about who Tina is. Who are you? Where are you? What do you love in life?
I'm 62. I live in Santa Cruz, which I absolutely love. I can walk along the beach. I can go downtown. It's just a really lovely place to live. I really enjoy just living for the moment here in Santa Cruz. I am a retired scientist. I have a PhD in ecology, and I worked for 30 years or so for Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory as their principal ecologist. A career that I really loved, really hard to give up. I didn't really give it up. I retired and kind of moved into another phase using some of the same background that I had gained with the lab. So I'm now a certified health coach. I've used my scientific credentials to really dig into the meat of health and wellness and fitness. I'm working on becoming a certified personal trainer now. I have a few clients, but I primarily do it for myself and for working with other older women like myself. So the few clients that I have are older women like me. And I've been able to transfer my passion for science and for ecology into the health and wellness space. And I really enjoy that.
And now you have the blessing of paying it forward, which is just warms my heart. That's what this is all about. Each one teach one, learn, and then pay it forward and move and help other people do the same thing. Incredible. All right, so let's talk a little bit about where you were when we met, how we met and started working together, and kind of where your goals were at that point in time.
Certainly. So we met on the low carb cruise last year. So I think it was around May of 2022. And it was my first cruise and the first time I had gone on what was considered a low carb cruise. Basically, it was a group of people organized by Debbie Hubbs, fabulous a low carb advocate. She's been putting on these cruises for many years, and they were canceled during the COVID era. I had originally signed up in 2020 to go, and it was
I don't think I knew that.
And it wasn't until 2022 that we were able to go. And you gave a presentation. It was the last day of the workshops. So we had presentations on sailing days, and then of course on port days we got to go do our port calls and all of that kind of stuff. It was a wonderful experience because you have a couple of hundred people who have the same interest and the same health goals and the same eating style as you. So it was a really nice way to do a cruise, which you can really get off the rails on a cruise, given all the alcohol and the food that's available. And having the presentations on the sailing days were wonderful. And you gave a presentation the last day that of all the presentations I heard on that cruise, yours resonated with me so much. Your journey and your experience and your vulnerability, talking about your relapse into bulimia and eating disorder, and your work towards becoming a bikini pro, which if people don't know what that means, bikini, it's, your followers probably know that, but it's a competition. It's a bodybuilding competition. It's kind of the first level of women's bodybuilding. As you go in, it's a gorgeous division because you're still very much feminine, but very very muscular, and you show your power, I think is what's wonderful about bikini. And so you gave that presentation, and it was so inspiring. And I remember standing up and asking a question. I said, do you think somebody, I was 61, was 60, was going to be 61 pretty soon. As somebody who's 60 years old could do something like that. And you and your husband were both there, Bronson. Well, not your husband, your significant other. I already have you guys connect. You and your significant other were there, Bronson, and you both came up to me and said, yeah, when are you going to do it? And I said, well, I just started to think about it. I don't even know what it means, actually. I had just gotten into weightlifting and strength training maybe 6 months before that cruise. I was a lifelong runner and could no longer run because of health issues. And as I was struggling to bring my health back online, I started to enjoy strength training, which frankly, I hated. All of my life, I hated it. I always tried doing it, and I knew it was good for me, and I absolutely hated it. Then when I could no longer do the endurance type work that I was so used to, and I was having trouble with my muscles and my nerves, it was such an eye-opener how fabulous you could feel feeling strong. And so I had just started to get into that and was starting to do it very seriously when I met you and heard your story. And I thought, now there's something that would give me purpose for the weight training. As I've always been very competitive. I mean, I'm just incredibly competitive. All through my adult life as a runner, I always entered races. I was always in the top in my age group for 10Ks, half marathons, all of that. And it was the motivation that really kept me going on running. And I would do my strength training at the time was you remember Body Pump?
Yep.
Okay, so I did Body Pump, on lunchtime at work. The laboratory was wonderful. They have a whole fitness center that you could go to and take classes and do classes at lunchtime. So on days I didn't run, I'd go do Body Pump or spin class or something like that. And that was my idea of strength training.
Very different, right? Totally
Very,
different
very
what you're doing now and the weight you're pushing now.
Exactly. So again, I met you at the low carb cruise, and we really connected at that point.
So you started to think about coaching probably a little shortly after that, and getting into, where do I take this from here? And what do I want to do with this? And talk a little bit about deciding to, or making the decision to work with me, and what that looked like for you, the
Right.
things that came up, the reservations you had, what you kind of thought through there.
Excellent question. I had already become certified myself as a health coach through the Functional Medicine Institute, as well as the Society for Metabolic Health Practitioners. So I was already starting to work on that, but I felt like I personally needed some help, as I needed my own coach. I had coaches in the past. When I went through my significant health crisis, I was working with a coach at the time, who then connected me with a fabulous functional nutritionist who I still work with today. But at the time that I met you, I didn't have a coach. And I thought to myself, if I really am going to do this bodybuilding thing, as well as working with older women as a health coach, I need some guidance on that. I can't do that by myself. And so I joined your Facebook group. I can't quite remember the name of your Facebook group right now. It's the Keto Bikini. Say that again?
Keto Bikini Secrets.
That was it. I knew it was Keto Bikini, but I couldn't remember the secrets part. So I joined the Facebook group and started interacting with you on the Facebook group. And I knew I needed more. If I was really thinking of seriously getting on stage and working through my continual difficulty with food and the relationship that I had with food, even with the nutritionist I was working with, who helped me quite a bit on that, I needed more of a support system on that. But I was nervous. I mean, I'm 60 years old. I mean, what am I going to, I have saggy skin on my butt from losing so much weight. Am I really going to be able to do this? And frankly, I said to myself, of course I can. I love giving presentations. That's part of the reason I got into being a health coach, is because I have that kind of personality who likes to be somewhat of an exhibitionist. At the
You've
same
never
time,
backed down from a challenge.
yeah, exactly. And but as an introvert, I can be very extrovert and very, exhibitionist, and then I need 3 or 4 days to just chill out and recover. But I was still very nervous about working with you, both because I knew I was going to have to talk with you about my continual struggle with my own bulimia and eating disorders, but at the same time, I knew you had gone through that. So that's what helped me decide, okay, she's got it all. She's got, the food and the empathy for what I'm going through on the eating part, and she's a bikini pro. She's going to help me with the training and all of that, and be the person in my corner. Because frankly, when you tell people that at my age, they look at you a little bit like, okay, that's interesting.
Oh my gosh. I think that's the perfect way to categorize to what a coach is for a person versus, and you have an incredible nutritionist. We've talked about her quite a bit. But usually versus trainers and nutritionists may or may not serve as in that coaching role. And as a health coach and what you've learned and how to work with people, that truly the difference in having a coach is, I think, the perfect way you described it, someone in your corner. They're with you in the trenches. Sometimes it's just being that listening ear. Sometimes it's just being that place where you can vent without any judgment and come to your own conclusions about stuff sometimes. It's not always that the coach is there to tell you always what to do. Sometimes it's allowing you just the space to process through it and come to your own conclusions. So
Everybody should have that.
Absolutely. And I honor you and many of my clients who have built their own, what I would call, health team. It's not just one professional that you're working with for everything. Usually it requires different perspectives and different expertise to give you the full package of what you really need as a human being. We are all 360-degree human beings, right? We don't live in a vacuum, I like to say. It's not just what you're eating and how you're moving your body. There's so much more to this game. So let's talk a little bit about what you're most proud of, your biggest wins, your most meaningful wins along this journey. We worked together for 6 months. That's no short chunk of change, although it can go fast. You look back and it's kind of a blink of an eye.
Yes, it did go fast.
Tell me a little bit about your proudest moments and your biggest wins along that journey.
There were a couple that come to mind. One is, like many who have struggled with weight off and on and body dysmorphia and eating issues, seeing the scale change is really difficult. I knew I was underweight. I knew I needed to put on weight to get to my goal of getting on stage, of putting on muscle. It plays with your head so much. And when I was finally able to get to the point that I could get on the scale and see a couple pounds difference and not freak out about it, that was huge for me. And how I got there, I remember this very clearly. I was discussing this with you, saying, I just don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. The scale's creeping up and I'm feeling nervous about that. And you put the 2 pictures, my starting picture and where I was. So we were probably 3 months into it. And you said, look at this difference. And I looked at it and I went, wow. Okay, I have to be good about it. I have to be fine about the scale thing. Because I was feeling better. I had more energy. I was sleeping better. And when I looked at the difference in my physique, from just putting on maybe 3 pounds. I mean, it was 3 lousy pounds, and I was
But it wasn't lousy.
So that was a huge win. And I've been able to carry that forward now. Now having crept up total since we started working together, I'm probably up about 10 pounds. 6 months ago, I would have really struggled with that big time. Now I can see the difference in my physique. I can feel the difference in my energy. I know what's going on. And I thank you for that. I would have never gotten to that point had we not worked together. So that was a really, really big win. The other big win was I went to a conference last year, and we had talked about, you were really great. Every time I traveled, we talked about, okay, what are going to be the difficulties with food? What could be triggering? How to make sure you can enjoy it without going off the rails and going on a relapse. And several of the trips went well. This particular trip went terribly. It was a fabulous conference, but they had really lovely meals every night, free wine with it. And the very first night I overdid it, went on a binge, and ended up in a bulimia relapse for the whole time I was there, for the 3 days that I was there. I was able to actually pull myself out of that the last day I was there, and was able to enjoy the last day and realize I'm putting that behind me. I'm enjoying this now. I can eat what I need to. And I was fine for the rest. I was fine for that, came home. The hardest thing I had to do was to tell you about it, and to tell my nutritionist about it, because she had been working with me on it, and she had helped me through several relapses in the past. In fact, I was recovering from, or in the middle actually, of a fairly substantial relapse during the low carb cruise when we met. So when you talked about your relapse, I was struggling with mine.
That definitely resonated then. Oh, wow.
It was a real, but my nutritionist helped. And then I had not even considered having a relapse for a good year until that conference. And it felt like it came out of nowhere. But I was able, from working with you, and obviously I'll give my nutritionist some of the credit as well, able to pull myself out. But I knew I had to tell both of you about it. It would have been so easy to say, okay, it happened. I was able to pull myself out. I'm going to ignore it, and we're going to go from here. But I would not have learned from it, and I would not have been able to work through some of the reasons it happened with you. Primarily the alcohol is the biggest trigger, the wine, not necessarily alcohol, but wine is a huge trigger for me. So that was, being able to talk about that was also a big win. So those are my 2 biggest wins with working with you.
I'm glad that you shared that story, because without a doubt, and this was something I shared, I think, on that talk on the cruise, without a doubt, the thing that keeps us stuck in disordered eating is shame and hiding. And when we allow that shame to take over, and we don't share and we keep it in, it keeps the cycle going. So that singular decision you made to face the fear and share and talk about it openly absolutely set the tone, because this was somewhat early on in our time together. Set the tone for the rest of the time, and set the tone for, I believe, how you're thriving now. Absolutely.
I struggled with bulimia off and on my entire adult life. I met my husband there at a very young age. We got together. We had a beautiful, beautiful marriage together, almost 40 years. But I struggled off and on all through that time with bulimia and eating disorder. And he kind of knew, and he would challenge me about it every so often. And I deny it because of the shame. And it wasn't until his last, I would say probably his last month or 2 of life, that we actually sat down and talked about it. And I actually admitted it after 30 plus years, almost 40 years. And we talked about it, and I talked about why. I mean, I didn't want to blame him, but I wanted him to understand that what somewhat fueled that was his intolerance of of overweight women, but his also desire for me to go out and eat huge dinners with him all the time. There was, and there was, so there was this dichotomy that I could not get around. And I also shared with this with him, I could remember to the day, the very first day I did it, I had never actually considered bulimia or anorexia or anything like that. I'd always kind of been a chubby kid, and I struggled with food, and I'd gone on diets. But in my early 20s, I saw a documentary on TV that talked about bulimia and how it was becoming an issue and how terrible it was. But I watched that and went, I could do that. It actually had the exact reverse effect on me. And so I thought, oh, okay. Because I never even heard of it until that time. And after a Chinese buffet one night, I went into the bathroom, and it was hard the first time, but I got better at it. It's just really disgusting to think about it. And then I just I struggled with it off and on. I'd go through periods where it was really bad. I'd get myself together. I'd go through long periods of not doing it. I'd go through periods again. And being able to discuss that with my husband before he died helped set the stage for me to be able to do it with you and others. But still, the shame that goes with that, and actually admitting to it, but having a discussion with him about why was, I'm just so grateful that I did that. And he understood, he got it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you found the courage to do that, because that was the seed that you then planted, that it's safe to share. I'm safe to share. And as difficult as it is every time to have to share, I truly believe you cannot recover without it. There's no recovery staying in the dark and in shame, because it keeps that shroud over it, and there's no light, right? I think I talked about going from the darkness to the light in that talk, that sharing is what opens the door to wellness and healing and recovery. And I don't know how you feel about recovery now, if your thought process has changed about it, how you look at it now. I know I have times where I think, this is just a part of my life. It's going to be a lifelong journey. And another thing I shared on that talk was that I need to be vigilant. Yep. It's not acute recovery. It's not like admitting yourself into an outpatient or inpatient recovery program. There are times for that, and there are times to be in more of an acute recovery phase. But I see it as, I will always be in recovery, and it will always be in the back of my mind, and possible to have a lapse. And I just treat that differently now, that a lapse doesn't ever have to become a relapse. And I think that moment where you lapsed on that trip could have turned into a relapse, but you making the decision that day to stop and end it, and then making the decision subsequently to share about it and talk to your coaches about it, is what kept it from becoming a relapse.
I completely agree with you on the fact, I'm not even going to say it's an idea, I think it's a fact, that once you have an eating disorder, you always have it. It's always there. It's always ready to come back out. It's no different than somebody who is an alcoholic, somebody who smoked, somebody who is a drug addict. Yeah, they can recover from all of those. They can quit smoking. They can recover from alcohol, but it's always there. They're one drink away of going on a binger. They're one, injection away of going back into drug abuse. So it's no different. And I don't care what some of the medical profession says. They don't think that food addiction, food issues are a problem. Although I do think that when they consider bulimia and anorexia, they put that in a different category.
They do, right. Right.
And yes, it's something that we will always have. It's always there. When you and I started working together, I shouldn't say started, when you and I started reintroducing carbs into my diet, because I was interested in doing that, and I wanted to increase the amount of
Fuel.
variety
Oh,
in my
variety.
diet. And as well as I thought it would also enhance my training and my energy, even though I know that you don't need it. I was nervous about that. I mean, they can certainly be trigger foods, and we worked that very, very carefully and very successfully, I'm happy to say. So that's another huge win, being able to go from 20 grams a day to 60 grams a day, and now I'm eating 120 grams a day. That's still low carb when to everybody else, but
in the
me,
context of the standard American diet, it
it's
is
huge.
very low.
Yeah.
But that's incredible to not have the fear of carbs.
Exactly. Right.
You're in a different place with your freedom and your truly control. I think control is always at the root when people have issues with food.
Mhm.
But to be able to feel in control with freedom, control can lead to freedom. Freedom can lead, they can go hand in hand and be married. And I'm seeing you do
Mhm.
that very successfully now, which is incredible how far you've come. So you shared a little bit about that. That was basically about your struggles and the challenges along the way. Um, what would you say would be your biggest aha moments or surprises along the way, biggest lessons learned?
Well, we've talked about a couple of them, but also what I wouldn't say it was an aha moment, but it was a reaffirmation that I can pretty much do anything if I work hard enough at it. I've always had that belief, always. But it was really challenged the last 10 years with the decline in my husband's health, caring for him full time, my own decline in my health, coming back from that. I started to doubt myself. I started to doubt that yes, I am that person that can do anything. But working with you and the encouragement and the empathy and the you can do anything attitude really brought that back around. So again, I don't know if that was an aha moment. Like I said, some of the moments we've already talked about, the bulimia and the carbs and such, but it was that reaffirmation that I'm 62. I have to admit that I'm no spring chicken anymore, but I can still pretty much do anything I want to if I work hard enough at it.
And you are,
that's
you are doing what you want to in so many ways with your health and fitness, but also with this new career,
right.
blossoming and very exciting. So let's talk a little bit about what's next for you, what your new goal is, and what you've now moved on to. And we're still working together in one respect, but I want to hear, tell everybody kind of where you're at now, which is very exciting.
Sure. Well, so you and I worked together for 6 months as my fitness coach, my trainer, as well as health coach. And so at the end of that 6 months, I was now convinced that I could be a bikini competitor, that was a real possibility. And you and I had spoken your knowledge about the federations that you work in, and my desire and my need actually to go into NPC and IFBB. So we both decided that I would go with a different coach for the next 6 months. I'm now with Team Elite Physique. Coach Adam Benil, I can never quite say his last name, Benillo, I think it is the head coach. He's got several Olympia bikini athletes in his roster. They're in Las Vegas, so I can go down there once a month and train with them. In fact, I'm going down this weekend to get together with them and work with them on the next phase of getting to stage. I would have never gotten that far had I not been working with you. And your encouragement and your understanding of why I was now going with a different team was really wonderful. And then you and I decided to continue working together as a life coach, which I'm really thrilled about. And so that's the big next step. Is my goal is to get on stage by the end of this year. It might not happen, but I will get on stage. It might be next year, not the end of this year, but it will happen. I'm also getting my kind of health coach and my personal business going. As an ecologist, I have a real interest in looking at evolutionary history, evolutionary background, and how that implies or can inform lifestyle choices, health choices, fitness choices, food choices. And so I've been working on that. I haven't quite launched a website yet, but it's called Health via Ecological Nutrition. And I'm probably going to rebrand it as Health via Ecological Nutrition or Ecological Nutrition, Fitness, Lifestyle, and Health, something along those lines. I haven't quite decided yet, but I'm still working on that concept. I do have an email now, and I do have the website started. I'm active on Instagram and working on building up I have a small clientele of women that I'm working with, but I want to finish becoming a certified personal trainer through NASM. And I've got a couple, I could easily become a collector of certifications if I'm not careful.
You already have a little bit extent.
I love learning, and it's so easy to get into that mode as a former scientist. But I want to actually start using that knowledge and being able to interpret new findings, new science, in the context of ecological and evolutionary history, and how to apply that. And so that's my real long-term goal, is to really kickstart that off. So take a look out for Ecological Nutrition, Fitness, and Health, which is what I think I'm going to end up rebranding it as. It's probably going to be a while before that gets on everybody's radar, but I'm not as active on Instagram as I'd like to, but I'm going to become more active and start introducing those concepts on Instagram. So, as well as my journey as a 60+ bikini competitor.
I love it. I can't wait to continue to follow along in your journey and be a part of it as your life coach, helping with all of the pieces, keeping it all together, right, moving forward, and to see you on stage. It is going to be incredible. You all, I will share Tina's contacts below so you can follow along as well with the rest of her journey. And if you have questions about being 60+ and being on this fitness journey, drop them in the comments. I'm sure Tina will come in and be happy to help answer those along with myself. Final question is for anyone where you were, right? Thinking about, can I do this at my age? Just getting started. What would be your advice for them?
My advice would be, start just investigating what the world of bodybuilding and the world of competing is. And what I mean by that is, watch YouTube videos, go to the NPC website, take a look at it, get a feel for what does it really mean to do that. Follow people on Instagram like yourself and others who are living that lifestyle, and start to understand what that means. And then sit down and think about, okay, do I really love training? Do I need help with my nutrition? If you're not there now, it's not that you can't do it, but you have to decide, you have to sit down and decide why you want to do that. And if you do, if your why is big enough, then yes, no matter how old you are, or no matter what weight you are, you can get there. If your why is strong enough, you can get there. But inform yourself first. I was a little bit naive when I listened to you, and I just kind of jumped out. Oh, and then I started doing. I kind of did it backwards. I started doing the research. Okay, what does that mean? But it confirmed that I thought I could do it. But just start informing yourself.
Learn. Yeah.
And start figuring out why you want to do it, and then follow the right people, watch the videos, get it, join a gym, get a coach, start thinking about what kind of nutrition you want to follow. You don't have to be keto. You don't have to be carnivore. You don't have to be high carb. You need to be something that you can sustain and live with and have it, fuel your why and get you to where you want to go. So anybody at any age can do it, especially women. Don't let older women are invisible in our society. And it pisses, pardon my language, but it pisses me off so much when I go into a store and I'm ignored. And if it happens, if it's long enough that I'm standing there waiting, I'll call them out on it. Yeah. And I remember to this day, the first time that happened, and it made me so angry that we are, just because we're menopausal and we can no longer have kids, we are invisible. Invisible. And it's terrible. And I'm going to change it in whatever little way that I can.
Or large way. This is what I have discovered as Tina's second mission in life, newfound mission in life. And I cannot wait for more of your message and your content to get out to the world.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and for being with me. And I'm so excited to continue on this journey with you.
And I with you, Natalie. Thank you so much.